Greetings and welcome. Welcome back to the 1987 World Championships in Portugal. Now, the River Mondeo in Cumbria in Portugal, which is situated, I suppose, halfway down the Portugal coast, the west coast. It is the year that changed my life forever. It was the 34th World Championships, which was being held on a venue most suited to the English style of fishing. A river that reminded me of the River Wye, that I fished as a young boy. It was fast flowing, 12 foot deep, and the river ran from the hills of Portugal down through the town of Cumbria before entering the sea at Ferreiro da Foz in mid-Portugal. As I said, the river, it was like fishing Belmont basically, and obviously the tactics were going to be very similar, but perhaps more on a waggler, more of a distance fishing. Anyway, now things in my life started to change slightly back home. My business started to deteriorate a little bit, the video business with, as I mentioned earlier, the big major companies like Blockbusters, Ritz, ABC, and a couple of the big companies. So I started to struggle a little bit as far as my income is concerned. So to help me finance this year's World Championship was a bit of a gamble, because I sold the business, the video business, which it was on the decline anyway, and I was looking to get into some other type of business, perhaps to do with fishing. Now, deciding that this year I will make the effort to travel there for a holiday before the event as normal, and I thought that could be the key to my success. I thought if I could please my wife, Pat, at the time, with a nice holiday, who over the years did support me, and at the same time get to know the river as well as I could, and I may have a chance of doing better than my silver medal of the year before. Now, during the 2-week practice, I befriended a local family that loved fishing, and Franco was the chairman of the local angling club. His family were very helpful, and something that will stick in my mind was, how they looked after us, complete foreigners. I suppose it must be, I suppose having fish in their blood is perhaps the reason why we all got on. Now, what made me laugh was their home. It was, it was a nice little home, little village, and they kept live chickens in the kitchen. In fact, they roamed all the way through the house. I hadn't experienced that before. Not until I came to Thailand, that is. It's the same over here. But anyway, the family were more unaccommodating, and they helped me learn the venue, which otherwise may have taken a lot longer on my own. In broken English, I talked to them about my fishing. I told them about my PMA and how I was going to win the individual championships the following week. Of course, it was met with skepticism, and they probably didn't believe me at the time. Now, for the 2 weeks before the event, I did manage to fish every day and as many swims as I could on the stretch of water. As I said, it was a nice river, running quite fast, like a gravelly bottom, and I got to know the species of fish in there, which were sort of small hides, dace, barbel, and that sort of thing. Anyway, but getting to know the other local anglers was also important, because gleaning as much information as I could, and I also fished one of their competitions, and I won a handsome trophy, which I'll put on the end of the vlog, just to show you that it was all going pretty well for me at the time. As I said, finding out that there was small barbel and carp in the river, it was a blessing, because most venues that we fished over the previous years have held all sorts of foreign types of catfish, vimbas and catfish and all sorts of things. But I'm glad to say the fish look normal in this river. Anyway, using my favourite method, the waggler, produced some very good bags of fish in practice. And the practice days went pretty well, and learning to fish within 10 meters of a zone in a running river was the key, because as I mentioned, when we fished the Welsh Raven, a lot of these anglers fish in the middle, eliminating their swim, cutting short their swim. So making sure that we fish on the top end of the swim. Now, being deep in most places also reduces problems, because trying to keep the float and the fish, in the moving water and in the swim, because no sooner had you cast and the float had settled, you'd have to reel in. So it was quite hard work, but it was all about work rate, and once you learn how to do it, then it come better through the week. Now this is where I devised a plan also to get loose feed out as far as possible, because as with all world championships that we've learned, that after the balling in, the fish disappear. Well, what they do, they actually go further out than most of the pole lines. So this is the advantage we thought, or the advantage I thought we could have. So devised this. It was a secret mixture of pea-sized gravel with sticky maggot and hemp, and to get the bait down in 12 foot of water, we had to get the balls dead right for it to work. Anyway, a quick telephone back home, making sure that the team brought enough big maggots as possible, which I thought was very important. The bigger the maggots, the better, because in those hot countries they don't produce the maggots that we do. They always seem to be a lot smaller. So anyway, but having a good bait sponsor was just important over the years. We learned how to transport them and keep them in good conditions. In fact, anglers from other countries were quite envious of the quality of our bait, and often we would exchange some tackle for our bait, as if we had enough, of course. Which reminded me of the time that all our maggots were missing on one World Championships, but I'll probably come to that a little bit later. Packing the maggots in a sealed polystyrene box with ice packs, obviously keep them cool. Keeping them for days, in suspended animation in airtight plastic bags. Now, bringing them out for the match as if they would just fell off the meat, was very important. So defrosting them, obviously, the few would die, but the majority would come off fresh, nice and big, with the big feed spots on them. Now, as I said, the Welsh team arrived just a few days before the event, so they didn't have much practice. I shared as much information as I could, knowing that it would suit our lads, and I had great expectations from the team. As I said, knowing that it would suit our type of fishing and methods. Now, the River Mondeo also suited the English team, and as far as the Fishing and Waggler is concerned, and I felt they were going to be the team to beat. Obviously, they had strength in depth, and there's some very good anglers with them. World-class anglers, as I said, it was Kevin Ashers, Tom Pickering, Dennis White, Steve Gardner was new. He was in the team, Ian Heaps, Bob Nudd, and I think possibly it was the strongest team England had ever fielded. So we certainly had our work cut out. Although everything was going smoothly, something unexpected happened to me just before the weekend of the match. I caught a virus, and that put me on my back and in bed, and I was feeling very sick indeed, thinking, I might not be able to make it to the match. It was that bad. I was pushing pills down my neck, and even called a doctor out, and saying there was a flu bug and it would soon pass before the weekend. Even so, I kept thinking, nothing could keep me from fishing this match. I spent so much time and practice, and then missing out on the event, was going to be horrendous. I did miss out on the evening dinner parade because I just warmed up to it, and it was something I regretted, but it couldn't be helped. Now, it was during this time I really, not feeling too well. I had to really dig into my PMA, my positive mental attitude. And during the week, I visualized myself holding aloft the trophy, each time I fell asleep. It's a tactic that's used by a lot of sports people when they, for example, going to do a high jump or a long jump. They'll visualize in their mind doing it before they actually do it. and psychologists tell us that it does work. So what do I have to lose, you know? But you really have to believe in it, and you know, I honestly believe it probably did help me because, as I said, on that Friday evening, I slept like a log through the night, and I woke up feeling good, and the fever had passed away. So you know, everything was looking good. The day of the event on the Saturday, it saw the usual ceremonies, you know, the draw the night before, and John Mayers, the long-standing manager, had managed to draw me a peg in an area of the river that was fair, which I'd also fished, you know, during my stay there. And I thought, yeah, you know, I may have a chance. Yeah, so as I mentioned, at the team day on the Saturday, basically, I my old adversary and friend, England's Kevin Ashurst, was also in my section. Now I know it was going to be a good match, and I was prepared for it, you know. Our team also had a reasonable draw, you know. However, the England team also had a fantastic draw, and the odds of winning the team event shortened very considerably. Even Italy, the second favourite, knew that England were the team to beat on the day. Now the match started, and for me, you know, the team event, we went pretty quick over the 3 hours, catching small barbel and a mixture of small carp and roach on the Waggler in 12 foot of water, and using the long distance approach with double maggot on a size 16, it was sorting out the slightly better fish. The bank runners on the day suggested that it was a 2-horse race for the section between myself and Kevin Ashurst. And I thought, oh, typical, you know, my friend and, you know, adversary Kevin, me and him. Anyway, our team, to be honest, was struggling, but not surprisingly, you know. They didn't put the effort in that I knew you really needed on this venue, because there were little tricks and little things you needed to sort out, like, you know, we all know when we fish certain venues. Anyway, England team looked good, and they were walking away with the team event, you know. They had very good showings in all the sections, including mine. And after the 3-hour match, the all-out was called, and I put £5 fish on the scales. I secured second place in the section, which I was more than happy with, knowing that it would put me in an individual match on the Sunday. But my greatest rival, Kevin Ashurst, was just beating me for the section win. Well done, Kevin. As I say, Team England pulverised the match with a record section point win with just 9 penalty points. Yep. Italy was second with 18 points, and an emerging talented team from Austria third with 33 points. So that was a great result for England, you know, coming off the back of the 2 years previously on the Arno. Last year they didn't too good, you know, when I was second in France, but they made up for it, and it was a fantastic result for them. Yeah, the Welsh team, as I said, they slumped a bit down to 14th, which was a bit disappointing. Yet again, I was the only Welsh member to have won through to the individual event on the Saturday, so you know, that was my blessing anyway. Now, on the individual day, the draw for the pegs was astonishing and fortuitous, as I was in an area, again, that I had practiced on during my stay the previous week. Peg 11, which is sort of a third of the way in the section. Nevertheless, the draw was also one of the toughest, because next to me was Dennis White of England, and next to Dennis was Kevin Ashurst, and next to him was Tommy Pickering. So you can imagine we're all in the line now, what I regard the top anglers in the world at the time, you know, especially on the Waggler. You know, the world's best anglers, it was just, you know, just mind-blowing, and it was a bit daunting, to say the least, for me. But I was up for it, you know. My positive mental attitude, I thought, yeah, come on, bring it on, let's go for it, and let's see what happens. Anyway, there was a little rain in the air to begin with, and it was cooling off, and however, it didn't stop the huge crowd of spectators behind us. And as the match progressed, you know, obviously we were in an area where it was like a fish battle. We were all catching strong with small barbel being the main quality. You know, Dennis next to me, you know, he'd go in front and I'd go in front of him. You know, I heard Tommy was catching well and Kevin was catching. Anyway, it was fantastic because the gallery of spectators behind us were at least 3 deep, you know, and they were applauding every fish in the net, every fish caught, which is fantastic. Anyway, throughout the 3-hour contest, the leaderboard swung, as I said, from angler to angler. I was swinging fishing, and so would Dennis next to me, and then I heard a loud clapping noise when Big Kevin landed a fish 2 pegs away from me on my left, and 2 pegs on my left actually was the young Welsh angler Giles Cochrane. Now Giles had just come into the team a year previously, and as a reserve he fished the individual as well last year, so he had a little bit of an insight into world fishing, championships, and you know, because he was a reserve, the reserve ruling came in, and Giles, who, as I said, was an up-and-coming angler, he had a credible 7th place the year before, which I forgot to mention, and now he was in the chance of doing even better, you know. Now, Giles went on to be one of the top commercial anglers in the country, which was incidental. But anyway, on that day, the sun was beating down. As soon as the rain had stopped, it was 30 degrees. I was absolutely baking. But, you know, I didn't notice it. My face was getting red with the sun. And, but the heat and the adrenaline rushing through you, you just forgot it. And anyway, the match was going, and the fish was fish, and everyone's saying how tight it is. They don't know who's going to win it. And anyway, with just a few minutes to the end of the match, I heard it was tight, as I said, and my boyhood hero Kevin, it was between me and him basically, and as the fish were being counted down, because in the World Championships they keep a board from behind you, and they keep a record of how many fish. So as I say, we were neck and neck, and all the fish were roughly about the same size. And anyway, it must have been a great match to watch, even though I was fishing it, and I was told afterwards that it was one of them matches that nobody could see who was going to win. But as I said, being told it was pretty close, and with just seconds to spare, because I kept the time, kept an eye on the time, and so did our runners. And I hooked a small barbel, and I remember last year when I was so close to being champion, and I blew it. I thought, right, let's just go for this one, and I swung this little barbel in. It must have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 ounces into my hand at the dying seconds as the whistle went, as the horn went, and I thought, right, I'm going to get this in the net regardless, and I just put it in the net, and that was it, all over. And I was told that it was going to be pretty close, so anyway, I'll tell you what happens now. Yeah, anyway, the weigh-in was dramatic, with whispers at the Anglers' Court on the other end of the match. But nevertheless, the main focus was around my area with all the top anglers. And now Giles Cochrane, my Welsh team member, he fished it well as well. And so did Dennis and Tom. But it was Kevin who weighed in on the scales, 2.48 kilograms, which is £5, 4 ounces, 8 grams. Dennis weighed in 222, which was £4.9, and then when the scales arrived to me, I put on the scales 2.5, which is £5, 5 ounces, 8 grams. I just couldn't believe it. I just beat Kevin Ashurst, my boyhood hero, to become world champion. Fantastic. It was though I was in a mesmer, because everybody was congratulating me from all around. People were clapping, patting me on my back. I was signing autographs, and I opened up a well-earned bottle of beer. My team members, including John Mayers, wanted to throw me in the river, which is a normal common practice when you win, but which is tradition. But I shouted out, "I can't swim." I said, "Don't throw me in the bloody water." Thinking back, to my childhood days when I was pushing the water and nearly bloody drowned. But it was fantastic. Thinking back, I did feel sorry for Kevin because, beating him by just a short margin, knowing what an incredible angler he is, and and the best in the world, and a friend of mine, But then I thought, it's my time, I got to win, and that was it. And becoming world champion was the pinnacle for me. Everything I aimed for, and becoming the first and the only Welsh angler to win the championships on the traditional Waggler, which was a great honour. As I said, it was the evening ceremony. It was brilliant, receiving awards. Dennis White coming third with the bronze, Kevin Asher second, and myself the gold. It's fabulous. It's like a dream had come true for me. On the night of the ceremony, we all had to stand up, and of course the Welsh anthem was being played. And I believe John Mayers, our captain, was enjoying my success more than myself, to be honest with you, because as the national anthem was being played, he actually almost joined me on stage to sing it. So fair dues to him. I mean, our success, any success, was his success as well, and I picked up a load of trophies, Kevin did, and Dennis, and it was great, but I made the decision not to travel back home immediately and enjoy, a further week, because I thought, it's a reward to myself and my wife, Pat, and I was very happy to make that decision. Having befriended the local anglers as well, they had to show me gratitude. They decided to take me, to their homes, and also meeting their families. And then they took me on a tour of the local brewery, which I was given dozens of bottles of real port, from Portugal, which I managed to stuff in my suitcase on my return home. Meeting the mayor of the town hall and having a dinner presentation in my honour was an experience. It lived with me forever. And one of the biggest rewards for me winning the championships was the recognition I received when I did get back home. Travelling back by car, which I, by the way, I drove there. But travelling back, because on the ferry it's quite easy actually if you go down through France and then down to Portugal. But anyway, travelling back, I stopped on a service, for petrol, in England, and somebody from the general public recognised me and come up and asked for my autograph. And I thought, wow, that was tremendous. Really proud, that somebody they already knew, before I could reach, come back to the UK. After that, I was asked to write angling, for the angling magazines, and following the great Ivan Max and Kevin, something I thought it would never happen to me, and being sponsored by a Welsh national petrol company, that was the start of it. I had a brand new car, which was a great honour, and then I became a full-time angler. Really, it was the pinnacle of my angling career. And I was being billed as Britain's first professional angler by all the angling newspapers, which I thought, was fantastic. So as I said, I didn't realise at the time what it really meant, become world champion. It was a great honour for me, and as far as I was concerned, it was the pinnacle of everything I aimed for. And to win it using traditional methods, and I've been saying this for many years, that if you fish to your strength, that's the only way we're ever going to win anything, I thought, which proved right really in a few years later, because as I said, without giving too much away, although you probably already know that the Welsh team actually won the World Championships on the Waggler. But anyway, more about that in my autobiography in a couple of vlogs time. So as I said, it was a fantastic the opportunity that came up my way, being sponsored and writing articles, and being, as I said before, being world championships, you don't actually win any money, you don't win no major prizes, but what you do get is lots of recognition and sponsorship, and it was basically being thrown at me, and I thought, why not? I'd sold my business, let's have a go at it. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to make a living on something that I enjoyed. So, but I tell you what, more about that in the next vlog. But in the meantime, I'll leave some pictures and show you what the press had to say, and me with the trophy and all that. So, okay, see you on the next side.